scholarships that B'nai B'rith gave, were they for Jewish students or all students?
Not necessarily. If there happened to be a Jewish student, they automatically got it. But otherwise, it was a Gentile. But if there was a Jewish and a Gentile, they both got it.
And it was money to help go to college?
Yeah.
How many years did you were in charge of that, weren't you?
No, I wasn't.
Well, you were
A
very
fellow named
active.
Bill Diamond was in charge of that.
Mm-hmm. You
Bill
were active.
Diamond, I was active, and Adolph Goldstein, they were and then Joel Collender got involved.
He's still doing them.
Okay. Do you want to introduce? Do you want to ask Anna
Anna.
some questions?
Okay.
I'm
So-
just shaking my head because
Yeah.
it's almost like him.
Okay, so what is your name and your Hebrew name?
My name is Anna Paikin, and my Hebrew name is Chana Bas Moshe. Chana Bas Moshe.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Altoona on December 24th, 1926.
Where were your parents from?
Lithuania.
How did they get to the United States?
Got to Ellis Island, I guess on a boat, on a ship. But they landed in Ellis Island.
And
Do you know why they left where they were?
They had to. My grandparents, God rest their soul, they had 5 kids, and they had to run. So they got on this boat or ship or whatever it was. My mother told me all about it. She was, my mother was about 5 when they came over. But my parents had never, ever met. My grandfather knew the Kaplans in Phillipsburg, and my mother was only 16, and my father was 12 years older than she, and they never were on a date or anything. The first thing you know, they go up to the shul. My grandmother went up, had everything fixed up with the rabbi there, and they got married. Never had a date, because he lived in Phillipsburg. And then my mother wasn't feeling well at the under the chuppah, so my grandmother took her to Altoona, to her place, and my grandparents, Kaplan, took my father back to Phillipsburg for about 2 weeks.
They never met until they were married.
Never met.
That's where they met, when
Never
they were getting
went out.
married.
They never, but I'll tell you, my father in English yesterday has been gone 52 years. And I tell Saul all the time about him. I can truthfully tell you that I never met a man that was so kind and so gentle as Morris Kaplan. I'm telling you, he was so gentle. He never ever smacked. There was 5 kids. He never smacked one of us. Never raised his voice. My mother was the disciplinarian. She was, she was a good mother though. And I'll tell you, she could take a bone from the butcher shop and make you the best meal you ever wanted to taste. She's a marvelous cook and baker. But she's been gone 22 years now.
Yeah. What happened after the 2 weeks? How that they were in their separate households? Then what happened?
You know the rest of the story. They couldn't. She got her period.
Oh.
When the rabbi, and that's why my grandmother took her back, and they had to tell her. She didn't, in those days, they didn't tell their children anything, My grandmother had to tell her everything, because she didn't know anything. She told me all about her love affair with my father. And she didn't have any children for 12 and a half years. I'm the oldest. And I guess they went to every doctor, even in Cleveland, and they said, you'll never have any children. And she didn't even know she was pregnant. A doctor here in Altoona, who was a fine doctor, Dr. Kaufman, he told her, he said, I believe you're pregnant, or in a family way.
Mhm.
You're in the family way. But they didn't have 50 years to get. They had a lot of years. They had a lot of years together. A lot of heartaches, and you know, my father got sick. He had prostate cancer, and then they didn't know anything about chemo and radiation and all that. So they put him in the hospital and just kept giving him morphine to keep the pain down.
Well, can I add, my father died when he was 53 years old, so I was young.
And you took over.
Yeah, well then then I took over the business. I have a sister in Philadelphia, but she was married and she didn't want.
Did you sell the business?
Oh no, well I kept it for 20 years.
And then
Then I
eventually?
eventually sold it.
To who?
A fellow named Caracciolo is a scrap business around town. I don't know if you ever saw it. A block up from Lena's. You know where Lena's restaurant is? Well, one block up there's Caracciolo. Well, that was mine at one time.
His granddaughter, or his daughter, is my friend.
Which one? Who's this father?
Her name is Delaney. Delaney Cracciola.
Well, it would probably be the man, his grandfather, probably.
Yeah,
It was his grand.
When we took my mother, they had Fiddler on the Roof. There was, I don't think you would remember them. What was the name of it? Rivoli.
And the Tivka? Oh,
No, the Rivoli. And it brought back all the memories of them having to run, you know. And my mother was sitting beside me, and I looked over at her. She was actually sobbing because I guess it brought back all those bad memories of my grandmother gathering up these kids and running with them, you know. Can't leave the kids behind there. And I looked over at her and I just went like this to her, you know. She really sobbed there. Then she laughed a little bit, and my mother wasn't much of a laugher. My father wasn't a laugher either. I think I picked that up at Riverside.
That's
Did
it.
you ask her about her parents' occupation and whether they had a Jewish house and all that?
What was your father's occupation?
Well, honey, my father had a junkyard too when he was in Phillipsburg, and then when he came here, he worked in the shops, and then when he got laid off, he went with my grandfather and my uncle in their truck and back in the junk business again. And then when, which I hope you never know, but when World War II started, then he got back into the railroad, and he was in the shops until he got too sick to work. Couldn't work. He went to work. How he ever worked, those men that worked with him told us, said, we don't know how he ever worked. He was in such pain, but he never gave in. My father never gave in to any pain.
Let me find my questions. Okay. Did you have an occupation or a job or anything?
I worked at Riverside Market for 23 years, and I worked in a drugstore, Nevin's drugstore, for 10. And then I went to Riverside after they closed.